again. Today we're going to talk about analyzing our data. So at this point you should have your data collected, hopefully about 3 weeks worth of data. We're going to work with 8 days of data that I have up here on the board for my project. And I'm going to show you how to analyze your data. Now everyone's data is different, so you may or may not need to use some of these methods. What you do need to do is think about what would be the best way to analyze your data. Suggest that to your instructor, and then your instructor will give you further feedback about what he or she thinks. So the first thing you're going to look at is, can I use measures of central tendency to describe my data? And most data, yes, that you're going to use measures of central tendency. So if we look at my data, I use these different times, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and I have 2 sets using each of those times. So I have 2 times that are 10 minutes, 2 times that are 20 minutes, 2 times that are 30 minutes, 2 times that are 40 minutes. So to analyze my data using measures of central tendency, one thing I might do is I might find the average of the time I walked my dog. So my average times I walked my dog, if I look at that with my measures of central tendency, well, I don't have a mode. Well, my mode is each number, so that's not going to be very helpful. I could look at my median number, what number is in the middle. So my median time I walked my dog, if I line all my numbers up, 10, 10, 20, 20, 30, 30, 40, 40, and I find the number that's in the middle by crossing them off, I'm going to end up right between 20 and 30 at 25. So my median would be 25. And that's for the amount of time I walked my dog. Then I might also find my mean time that I walked my dog. So I would add these up. So 10 plus 20 is 30, plus 30 is 60, plus 40 is 100. So I walked my dog a total of 100 minutes here, 100 minutes there. I walked him for 8 days, so I would do 200 divided by 8 to come up with my mean. So 8 goes into 20 2 times. So 25 is my mean. Then I would do the same for the time he follows me around. I could find the average time he follows me around for the mean, median, mode. I'm not going to calculate that right now, but I would do the same thing. I would look for, okay, I don't have a mode here because none of my numbers are repeated. I could calculate the median by lining up all my numbers from least to greatest and finding the middle number. And I could find my mean by adding them all up and dividing by 8, since that's the number of data points I have. So to save time, I'm not going to go through that whole process. The other piece of information we could include here is the range of my data. So I'm going to do the range just for the time I walked my dog. So the range for this would be from 10 to 40. So if I do 40 minus 10, I get 30. So my range is 30. So that's one thing I might do to analyze it. The other thing that would be helpful to do is combine my data for similar times walked. So I have 10 and 10 here and here. I walked my dog for 10 minutes both days. So what's the average time that he followed me around when I did that? So to find for 10 minutes, the average time would be, if we add the 2 numbers, 65 and 70, I get 135, and then I divide that by 2, okay, so I get 67.5 is my average for 10 minutes, my mean is 67.5. That would also be my median in this case. And there's no range. Then I could do the same with my 20s. Say, okay, what's my average for 20 minutes? What's my average for 30 minutes? What's my average for 40 minutes? Some other methods you will likely be asked to use are to make ratios of the time you walk the dog to the time he follows you. So I might be making a ratio using the mean time that he followed me to the mean time I walked my dog. Or we may ask you to do ratios of the time that he follows me to the time I walked each day. So let's just practice making a ratio for one of them. So let's do, if I were to make a ratio for this first data set here, for the 10 minutes and the 65. So we said that for 10 minutes, the mean time that he followed me was 67.5 minutes, right? So if I wanted to then make a ratio of the time he followed me, the time he followed to the time walked, I would use my 67.5 minutes as my first one, because that's the average time he followed me, to my 10-minute walk. Well, when I do a ratio, I can't have a decimal on the top, and so I'm going to use my knowledge of powers of 10 to change that. So if I have 67.5, if I move my decimal on the top one place, I can get rid of it. Well, if I move it on the top one place, I also have to move it on the bottom. So now I have 675 over 100. My next step is to simplify. So with any ratio, I can treat it like a fraction in the sense that I can divide by the same number. So if I divide these both by 5, this one's going to become 20. So the 100 becomes 20. And the 675 is going to become 135. So that would be my ratio there. I could also ask you to do a percent problem or find a percent difference. So every project is going to be a little bit different with what you are going to do. So you will have to be in contact with your teacher about that. The last thing you're going to be doing is deciding what type of graph to make. If you want to make a bar graph, a histogram, a pie chart, or a scatter plot. Most of ours are either going to be bar graphs or scatter plots, and it really depends on what you have with your data. So if you have words instead of numbers, you're going to have to do a bar graph. Unless the words are things like the month of the year, like January, February, March, that type of thing. But most of us who have words are going to be doing a bar graph, where you have your bars, like that. You need to be sure to label your axes, so put words and units for your axes, and also a title. Typically, your independent variable will go on the x-axis, and your dependent variable will go on the y-axis. Your title will be independent variable versus dependent variable. And you'll have to put in your specific independent variable and your dependent variable. Now, some of you are also going to be doing a scatter plot. So a scatter plot, we have our x-axis and our y-axis. For the one I have here, this is going to be a scatter plot because my independent variable and my dependent variable are both numbers. And I'm probably going to want to use my averages to graph here. But how I would set this up is I would set up my title as the time walking versus time following. Okay. On the x-axis then, I would put my independent variable, the time walking, and I measured this in minutes. And over here, the time that my dog followed. And again, I measure this in minutes. Then I'm going to have a series of points here because I'll have my different numbers here. So you'll have to figure out what your range of numbers is and how to best fit it on your graph. Here I have 10, 20, 30, 40. Going up, my numbers vary from 5 being the lowest to 70 being the highest. So I might decide I'm going to go up by 10s going up this way. You'll have more space than me, so probably on your project you'd go up by 5s just to get a little bit more accurate graph. And then you're going to plot your points. So for example, my first point, when I found the mean here of 65 and 70, I found it to be 67.5. So if I were to plot this, I would put for my 10 minutes walking, I would do 67.5 and line that up. And then I'd find my average for the next one and plot that. What's going to happen is we're going to see kind of a downward trend when I graph this data. So that's what you're looking for when you're analyzing your data. Again, it's hard to tell you exactly what you need, but think about what you know about analyzing data, about graphing, about measures of central tendency to decide what you might do. When your teacher gives you feedback, make sure you follow that feedback to make your project better. Have a good day.